joke teller. That's really all that matters in the end.
I like the blue polo, Hutch. Is it blue or gray? Would you say?
It's light blue.
It's baby blue.
Wait, I feel like Hutch has been screaming today because like his voice is a little scratchy. Like he's been yelling. What have you been yelling at?
No, actually, no. We had
Yelling
a
at-
very nice civil conversation. No voices raised. It was crazy.
With who?
He's a Twitter account called History Speaks. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with him, but yeah, we chatted about Israel and some other stuff.
You how much of your content is like foreign policy based? Because I just see the domestic stuff.
It's not really like broadly foreign policy based. It was like a lot of Israel-Palestine discourse for a really long time. But the issue that he had with me, and we've talked about it, was just like the amount of time I spend criticizing lefties versus center-left people like Fetterman and like MAGA, I guess. But yeah.
Chat, by the way, let us know how our respective volumes are. There was a recent panel that I think Pisco put on his own channel separately as part of like prepared content. And when I was watching the VOD of our stream, like my audio was fucked in terms of like how low it was. So just let us know if we sound balanced. If
Was
not,
my prepared content bad audio?
No. It sounded good, and I had remembered somebody saying that there was audio issues in the original. So then I went back to the original, the VOD, and it was fucked. But Hutch,
Pisco, do you have pink eye? What's going on there? Are you high? Are you smoking weed?
It's called blepharospastis or something. I have very like red like eyes generally, and so I take some Claritin. And
don't take Benadryl. You'll pass the fuck out. Don't do that.
I'm treating it also with some like ointment and stuff and drops. Yeah.
Well, now I feel bad.
You should feel bad, you prick. No, I'm kidding. I will also, since we referenced Harry Potter in one of the recent streams, you may recall that as Tom Riddle began his descent into evil, I think it was after his first Horcrux, his eyes began to turn red intermittently. So we can't rule out the possibility that Pisco is a dark wizard on his path towards evil.
Can we just talk about how fucking dope the casting is for Gandalf?
For Gandalf?
For the HBO series? It's
you mean
Jonathan
Dumbledore?
motherfucking Lithgow.
You mean Dumbledore?
Yeah. Oh god, I just had a
what the fuck?
That was great. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Wait, did you do that on purpose? You did that on purpose, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I swear to God. No, Dumbledore. Jonathan Lithgow is gonna play him.
Yeah, no, that's a great casting. I mean, you know, he's got the height because Dumbledore's supposed to be like over 6 feet tall. He's supposed to be really tall. He's like 6'4".
He's got the gravitas, you know.
He does have the gravitas. You want to talk about a varied actor, right? So like Third Rock from the Sun, that's on one part of the spectrum. You know, the sitcom in the mid '90s where he plays an alien,
then Trinity,
like an extraterrestrial. Fucking Trinity and Dexter.
And Churchill.
Churchill. He plays Churchill.
He was pretty good as him. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I agree. I think it's excellent. I'll be honest with you though. Again, as somebody who loves a good pop culture villain, they got to do better coming up with Voldemort. Now they've got a couple of seasons, I suppose, because we don't see him in the flesh until I guess it'd be the equivalent of the 4th season. But
was there a casting announcement there or no?
No, they haven't. That's where to me, this is what breaks the whole fucking thing because Ralph Fiennes is a great actor. Loved him in Schindler's List and The Menu and.
Wait, hold up. He was amazing as Voldemort.
No, bro. Honestly, unironically, and I'll die on
this. This is one of your hot takes.
It is
crazy, bro. He was great. I don't know.
It is. So, like, have all three of you like diligently read the books?
No.
Yes,
but you never read the you never read the books.
It's Pride Month, and we shouldn't be reading J.K. Rowling during such a time. If you ask me,
I'm not going to be reading her this month. I'm going to abstain.
Back in like 2000, 2001 or whatever.
But like you never read the Harry Potter books?
No. They were never assigned in school, and I wasn't much of a reader as a kid. And now that I'm older, I don't have much interest in reading fiction. So it just never, I never hit the wave at any point. I've seen all the movies though, like a simpleton.
Well, I'll just wrap it up by saying this, and then I'll let you guys have the final word. The reason that I unironically don't like Ralph Fiennes' performance is if you actually read the books. Yeah, Voldemort has like some manic episodes, don't get me wrong. But like if you look at the graveyard scene where he's resurrected, like they use the expression like still, like the adjective, he's still and quiet. And if you watch the graveyard scene in the Goblet of Fire, Ralph Fiennes is like running around making weird noises. It's just, it's like, it's so.
I want to see the light leave your eyes.
Yeah, I can touch you now. It's so fucking cringe. Like, he's like super controlled in the books until he finally snaps at various points, particularly in the Deathly Hallows. So it's just, he comes off really goofy and cringe. Like, there's a really good Voldemort weird noise compilation on YouTube, and it's fucking hilarious. Like the awkward Draco. So no. Yeah.
Well, the Hagrid casting is really good too. He's the bigger guy from Shaun of the Dead and those other movies. He's going to be great too. So
no, 100%. Yeah, and did they cast like McGonagall or anybody like that? Because you want to talk about like OG casting, like that's.
I think they did.
Getting better than Maggie Smith. That's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I know. And my God, it seems like half the cast is dead. Alan Rickman, Robbie.
The name.
Coltrane, who played Hagrid, he's dead. Like, they're all dead. Everybody's dead. It's like Republican healthcare. It's like everybody's dead, you know, in the words of the great Joni Ernst.
Well, they were old 20 years ago, so yeah.
True. Touche. Boys, what about this fucking MAGA civil war?
Bro.
We need to be careful, though.
How much of a civil war?
We're too close to it because we want it to be like a huge thing. But it kind of is objectively, but like I want it to be a big thing. So there's
I'm manifesting. I'm manifesting in a big way.
It's obviously a huge problem for congressional Republicans right now because they are up against it. There's no good choices for them. They can risk Elon funding a primary, which I tweeted about it yesterday, and some people were like, no, he's just bluffing. He wouldn't do that. I don't think that's true. I think he is a believer. I think he's an ideologue. I don't know if this is ego. I think this is him like genuinely wanting to, cut government spending and because he believes it's going to, save us from bankruptcy. And then
I heard reporting, Hutch, that it's the EV credits that he was going to support the bill.
It's four things. That's one of them.
For it.
Well, let's hear it. Yeah.
It's the EV credits. It's the fact that at the very end, they pulled his preferred NASA administrator candidate at the very end. That's one. They also, I had a list here. I tweeted about it. The NASA administrator, the EV credit. Starlink. He wanted Starlink to assume control over all the FAA computer systems and the Trump administration. I want you to think about this.
Okay, as corrupt, take it back. He wasn't motivated by ideology then. So.
Oh no. Well, I mean, I think it's partial. I don't think he's not a hero in this. And he's not particularly principled, but I do think he's more honest about what this bill is doing than the Republicans, like the Trump Republicans. And I do think there's this like fiscal hawkishness to it in the sense that this vaporized his Doge cuts, right? Even with the rescission package that the White House sent, I mean, it's what, $9 billion. This thing is going to like blitz right through that. So I think it's principle and selfishness, whereas it's all selfishness for the other side.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing will just be to see, generally speaking, where the heart of the Republican Party lies, because obviously it seems like obviously it's clear that the overwhelming portion of the Republicans in Congress do indeed just do whatever Trump says. 95% of them, obviously it passed the House. It's only going to fail the Senate or have to get sent back by a handful of Republicans. But on the margin, a guy like Elon Musk could make a big difference between a bill like this passing and failing. I think that to me, the hardest part about this bill is it's kind of trivial in a sense. It only increases the deficit over a 10-year period by $2 or $3 trillion, which over a 10-year period, the idea of like, oh, how could we raise an extra couple $100 billion a year? That's not really that big of a deal. I mean, you could raise that pretty simply, but if you actually wanted to close the entirety of the deficit, right? If you really wanted to cut into not just the additional deficit spending, but the actual deficit as it is, you'd have to raise, you'd either have to cut, $1 trillion, $2 trillion a year instead of a couple $100 billion, or you'd have to raise that equivalent amount in taxes. And since the Republicans don't want to raise any taxes, even the millionaire tax suggested by Trump got shot down. Well, if that's the case, then you'd have to cut some equivalent amount of spending. And frankly, that's where you start to probably peel off a lot of moderates. Like, look, I'm not going to vote for literally cutting $1 trillion of spending, right? I mean, that's crazy. Nobody would reelect me if that was the case. And it could cause a recession. So it's a not a prisoner's dilemma. It's just a rock and a hard place where the more that you cut in and appease the deficit hawks, Elon Musk, probably the less moderates you're going to get on the bill. Even if you can get the moderates to agree with that, well, now you've got an electoral time bomb where, oh, fuck, we're going to have people, we're going to have like half of our Medicaid recipients get, cut off of their service or something if we have to cut $1 trillion out of discretionary spending. So
can we look at some of the timeline here while people go ahead, Hutch, and then we'll look at just to catch everybody up.
Pisco, you got it.
I was just going to say that you have to zoom in, but no, it's an impossible situation for the I guess the ideology behind the Republicans. Now, ultimately, it might pass, or some version of it might pass because of Trump's, holding the party. But truly, they're lying about what the goals are, and they're mutually incompatible. If you want to balance the budget, as Trump says that he wanted to, you're going to need to cut into not just like this, these discretionary spending line items that are not the military. You're going to need to touch the mandatory spending, the Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Now this touches Medicaid for sure. The CBO just released its report, or at least some elements of its report. Some figures. I think there's still some calculations they're doing, but like
11 million people, bro.
11, yeah. 2.5 trillion added to the deficit, I think, over 10 years, or to the debt over 10 years, and 10 to 11 million people off of insurance. Now that's a big cut, but it doesn't put a dent into our deficit or to our debt when you're paying for these massive tax cuts, massive increases in military, massive increase in like deportations and border patrol. So it's just an impossible situation. If you want to address the deficit, you're going to have to not spend as much.
Well, speaking of the impossible situations, like, do you upset Trump? Do you upset Elon? I feel like the safe bet is they're probably going to want to try to keep Trump happy and then just hope that Elon calms down before
I thought it might be here's what might be a good exercise here actually on that score, because I do think it's a tough call. So Hutch takes the position that neither of pissing off either of them is a bad idea, but it's worse to piss off Trump. Does anyone want to play the devil's advocate and say it's worse to piss off Musk? Because I think you make that a pretty strong case there too. So wait, Hutch, make your case first, and then Pisco respond with the why Elon is worse to piss off.
Well, I just think Trump is a more immediate threat right now. And I feel like the threat with Trump, even though, I mean, it's obviously significant that someone like Elon can single-handedly, bankroll a lot of these potential primaries. I mean, that's obviously something to worry about. But Trump, I think, in some ways poses a more existential threat. Like, we can see just a wake of dead bodies in his path. The Jeff Sessions is like a really good example of someone who was super loyal. I mean, Pence would be the best example, but Sessions is always the funniest one to me, because he threw Sessions to the wolves like within a month of his first presidency. And Sessions was the first senator to endorse Trump. And that was it. That was over. He ran for a seat again a few years later and got blown out. And so I think, like, with Elon, the threat of Elon, you have this wiggle room where you can, Elon is this mercurial guy that's really unpredictable and volatile, but you have time to maybe like weather that storm, or maybe he just gets distracted, or maybe he changes his mind. So that's my thinking there.
Okay, Pisco, your response.
I happen to agree with Hutch, but I'll play the devil's advocate, which is merely that Trump's an old guy. Trump is old. He has look at his schedule. No one's seen him in a few days. He's like getting briefings a couple times a day, and then going to a sorbet today, I think, or yesterday. But anyway, he has a very, very light schedule because he's an old guy. He's older than Biden was at this exact same time in office, and he's going to go away one day. As death gets us all, and old age gets us all. And so, if you're looking towards the future, you can't just rely on Trump. And one of the I think the faults in a lot of these Republicans is they're not planning for a post-Trump world. And in the post-Trump world, who is going to be the major coalescing figure? Who are going to be the movers and shakers? I would be incredibly surprised if it was someone like Donald Trump Jr. Versus Elon Musk. That's
I'll also
my devil's advocate position.
I'll add in too, because I'm seriously undecided on this, and this has been a recurring theme of my videos for today. Because like before Musk came out and with this broadside, I mean, he'd been publicly indicating opposition to the big beautiful bill for some time, but you know, you have like somebody like Ron Johnson, for example, who is who's awful. He's a Wisconsin Republican senator. He's terrible. He supported the you know, big lie about 2020. He tried to facilitate Trump's attempts to invalidate the results in Wisconsin. I mean, just a monstrous piece of shit. But weeks ago, before this happened, you know, he was out there saying things like, and I was actually stunned that he dared say this out loud. He's like, you know, quote, "I couldn't care less if Trump is upset by this," because he's like, "I'm not voting for it under," he thinks it's too fiscally irresponsible. You have Rand Paul coming out against it, Josh Hawley from the faux populist side, and so many other things. And but like Ron Johnson's interesting to me because, you know, he's like, "I may not even run for re-election." And others are like, "I'm not even eligible for re-election until after Trump leaves office." And so I agree. Like my instinct
this would
is
be more towards like House Republicans, for example.
Yeah,
they defend their seat every 2 years.
but it's already passed the House, right? So like in terms of, I think Trump.
That's the funniest part, though, Josiah. Sorry to interrupt, but the funniest part of this entire saga are the House Republicans who are like, Elon should have done something sooner, or they'll say something. I think this was Representative Perry who said, like, this is why the concerns I had were genuine, but they voted for the fucking bill.
Voted for the bill. Yeah, Scott Perry, that piece of shit. But the other reason I would just add to it, I mean, that's a great point, Pisco. Like they were looking for a permission structure before, right? Yep. Before they folded. And if Elon had come out and said what he said, you're right, like 2 weeks ago, it may not have even made it out the House, because remember, part of the threat that Trump has been pressing, and Elon too, since Trump won the election, is that if you defy Trump, you not only have to face his wrath, but you have to face Elon's money as well, as part of that pincer maneuver. Like they were fucked. And now one half of that, at least at the moment, is gone. And so Trump just lost a lot of leverage, not all of it, but a lot of it. And I think it's interesting. The other reason why I'm still not sold on who is the one to fear most if you're a Republican is this. Trump has been silent on the Musk thing until today, about 2 hours ago. And this was his response. I mean, he may go unhinged in a couple of hours, but all he did was retweet a screenshot of Elon thanking Trump a few days ago. As my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The Doge mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. So this guy who is horny to pick a fight.
Hold on. What was that text at the bottom? Did you see that text? What was that? There's extra text down there.
Oh, no. This is part of the Midas Touch article.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So think about it. Donald Trump.
The cracks are starting to form a little bit.
Well, no, 100%. But to me, it's telling that Trump, who has issued one mean tweet after another against Republican lawmakers and challengers and Democrats and everybody else, he's being really timid and really careful so far around Musk.
There's a massive power imbalance. It's one thing for him to beat up on a, Republican serving in a district in Wisconsin. It's another thing for him to pick a fight with the richest man in the world.
No, I agree, but I guess that's my point, is that to me, if somebody is brash and brazen, I mean, this guy was fucking trolling Kim Jong-un. Remember, like, you want to go Rocket Man? Like this guy would rather risk nuclear fucking war than pick a fight with Elon Musk. And so I'm not saying that that's necessarily, I guess it's positive of anything. To me, it indicates that even Trump is like, okay, I've got to be very careful. And if Trump has to be careful, these motherfuckers in the House and the Senate do as well. So that's my
I think there's a really easy explanation for that. Like, Trump obviously understands the value of narratives and messaging, and for someone like Elon Musk, who number one is the richest guy in the world, but number two, he literally owns a social media platform. He can single-handedly, kick off international discourse about this or that thing. And so it's not just about the wealth or anything like that, but Trump fears Elon and his ability to, and Elon, I don't know if Elon could peel away even 10% of MAGA voters, but maybe 5%, and that could potentially make a huge difference. So
I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that Trump has much reason to fear Elon for a lot of the same reasons we mentioned before, that Trump is really, really old. He's never running again. Trump has literally never cared. He's never done anything to indicate that he cares about the short-term or the long-term health of the Republican Party. And I don't think he's done anything differently in the last couple of years to present otherwise. I think that even that just shows that even that tweet that or that truth that Josiah pulled up earlier speaks to that Trump didn't have a problem picking a fight with Elon Musk when he was the richest or the second richest person in the world during his first term, and I don't think he's going to have much of a problem with that in his second term either. I mean, he has no incentive to do otherwise. He's never cared about the electoral consequences of his actions, and I think at the end of the day, look, if Elon says this is gonna be a problem for you, Trump's just gonna say, okay, well, you can't back me into a corner. I'm just gonna counterattack as much as possible. And
I'm gonna kill this bill before you do. Well, forget
the potential electoral implications for like 2026 or 2028. Because I think I agree with you. I don't think he's thinking about the health of the Republican Party.
Agreed.
But Elon is in a different position now than he was during his first term, in that Elon can potentially turn a lot of people against him, and I think that is something that probably really impacts his ego, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, but it goes both ways, right? Because Elon Musk clearly cares about his personal popularity as well to some degree, and I think that one thing that I think that's motivated Elon to kind of pull out of Doge is he's realized how bad it's been for his personal popularity and his personal brand, and obviously this was an incoherent strategy. I mean, you've got an electric car company owner who is pissing off substantially the entirety of the worldwide left-wing population who are much more likely to purchase electric cars. And so he's kind of pulling back from that. And so if Elon kind of doubles down and says, no, I'm going to be a real thorn in even Trump's side, well, now you're just going to piss off the cult, right? You're going to piss off the people who are actually the 35% of people that actually approve of you, and you're never getting those leftists back, right? And so, it's not that Elon Musk or Trump are perfectly tied to popular opinion or they care about these things very, very directly, but that's a balancing act for Elon Musk as well. And
what if Elon is just not rational? What if he's just a drug addict who's fucking, just off his own world? Yeah.
If we're talking about a pure power to power matchup here, the president is more powerful than any billionaire, right? I mean, you talk about Musk owning a social media company. Trump can make literally substantially any statement and get, millions and millions of dollars of free coverage because he's the president, right? Nobody gives that much of a shit about what Elon is saying or tweeting. Twitter is not even, nearly the biggest social media platform, right? So I'm not trying to understate Elon Musk's power, but comparing Elon Musk, a guy worth $400 billion, to the president of the United States, the guy who's in charge of trillions of dollars of assets and, a government that's spending another trillions of dollars and taxing another trillions of dollars. It's just no comparison, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I take your point that, at the end of the day, Trump is still much more powerful. I just think that I do think that there's something betrayed about this, because I think that if Trump were not concerned at all by Elon's rebellion here, I think Trump would respond the way he does with anybody else. And there's also a report, Maggie Haberman from the New York Times was talking about this about a week ago when Musk was starting to, publicly flirt with, I think it was like a preview clip for that CBS Sunday interview, which aired again on Sunday, but there was a clip that previewed on Monday. And, she's like, yeah, I've got sources, and she's like one of the best connected to Trump world that Trump does not want to pick a fight with Elon on this. I think it's a level of timidity that we've never seen. It's like anything else. I mean, it's like you could almost make that case with Biden picking fights with people or Obama or whatever. When you're president of the United States, you are the most powerful person on earth, but it's like, man, is it fucking worth it to pick this particular fight, or is it just?
Has anyone seen where Trump is? I mean, have you seen? I mean,
well, it's funny.
Do we still know if he's running the show?
He is now giving public remarks at the White House South Lawn, and what's funny is, how do we
know that's really Trump?
That's true. It could be a robot, could be a clone. But I wanted to play this real quick because I was scrolling while you were talking just to make sure I've got these sources up. And Trump said this, Pisco, and I think he's directing it right at you.
But 6 months ago, we had a nation that was as cold as ice. It was cold. The whole world was laughing at us. And they're not laughing anymore, that I can tell you now, because of the people here tonight. We have the hottest, most talked about country anywhere in the world. I went to the Middle East, we went to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, we went to UAE, we went to 3 stops, we brought back $5.1 trillion. Think of that.
Oh my God.
5.1. They ordered
it gets better.
Massive amounts of military equipment, regular equipment, 200 Boeing aircraft. and we got one for free for the nation. You've been hearing that. The United States Air Force got one for free. And saying, I'd like one because we need it as Air Force One until the other ones are done. And they said, we would be pleased to give you. So they gave us a Boeing 747.
Well, that's not what you said at first.
Yeah, did you see what he did, Pisco? How he, and this is where you should reach out to Viva, your boy Viva Frey, and be like, hey, your fucking cult leader just admitted it. He asked for a free plane, and they said we would be pleased to do it. He just gave the whole fucking thing away. And by the way, it's not free. When you have to spend between $400 million to $1.2 billion worth of legally required security upgrades that the taxpayer will pay for, you have 2 to 3x the taxpayer cost by definition. He didn't cancel the Boeing contracts. There is no evidence that the current Air Force One is so old and obsolete that it can't function. It's a fucking vanity exercise by Trump.
It's so fucking pathetic. Whenever I see Trump supporters try to defend this corrupt deal, it makes me want to fucking laugh. You guys are like the most baby-eyed, delusional little children. Oh yes, he got it for free. They just love him so much. I forget what Viva said the other day. One of these other fucking losers. They're like, it's disrespectful in their culture to turn down a gift, and so it would be disrespectful and like it would be hubris for Trump to turn it down. You guys are disgusting cult sycophants. By the way, I saw some fucking copers in the chat like, oh, what about the Democratic Party? We always criticize the Democratic Party on this. Like that's 80% of our coverage here is about how shitty the jobs the Democrats are doing.
Not me, for the record.
Chuck Schumer. Yeah, not Hutch. Hutch is the fucking whatever op. But no,
Hutch is Chuck Schumer's campaign manager. Don't let him fool you.
We talk shit about the Democrats and what they're doing, but none of it will ever release the stain of the kind of hoops you have to jump through. And like seriously, think about what these people are saying who are coming to you from Trump world. They're like, this Qatari plane completely like nothing to see here, no corruption whatsoever. It's despicable, and you guys are a cult, and you're defending the undefendable.
I feel like if it was Biden, all four of us would be like, "This is fucking completely
absolutely,
corrupt.
bro." Yeah, like that. Yeah, there's no question. Like, I mean, listen, we all have our biases, we all have our preferences. Oh, Hutch, did you watch Pisco's debate with Viva Frey?
Not yet. No, it was in the queue today, but
I can't wait for you to see it. There's one point because I still have not seen the full thing. Conboy, did you catch it?
Only a few clips.
So there's one clip where I think it's towards the end where Pisco's like, he basically tries to pin him on this kid. Like, can we agree that if this were Joe Biden, you would have a totally different reaction? And he finally was just like,
yes.
He's like, yes, I would. He's like, because I hold them to different standards, because Biden is corrupt and dishonest and Trump is not. And so it would be silly to hold them to the same standard.
It's a free plane. Wouldn't you take a free plane? You guys are so fucking gross. I see you all in the chat. Imagine shilling for Trump, this corrupt old guy. You know, it's the and also, by the way, just to put it into perspective, he had said in 2017 that Qatar was like one of the greatest funders of terrorism in the entire world. And the guy I spoke to yesterday, it's not Viva Frey. He was like, no, you don't understand. This plane is incredibly integral to the peace plan that Trump is negotiating. It's really important for Trump to be able to use a plane, Air Force One, after his term in office. And it's important for, the next administration to have the DEI planes from Boeing, because if we don't have this free plane, we're not going to have peace in the Middle East. These are the hoops that you guys jump through. It's pathetic.
Qatar is like the biggest supporter of Hamas in that entire region. So that's how they got there.
I've not, and since we're talking about just like random stuff popping up that's relevant to Trump as well, I don't know if you guys saw this. I don't know if it's true, and I'm too lazy to fact check, but Kai von Schroff shares a screenshot here. Colombia failed to meet its accreditation standards. U.S. government says. Didn't Colombia, weren't they the ones that folded?
Yeah, it does you no favors to fold to the administration. And this goes to show you the corrupt oligarchs in charge of the country now, and Trump himself included. They are just using all of their authorities for personal and political ends. If this happened to conservatives, they would be, screaming from the hills at the kind of corruption that we're seeing.
That's insane. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I would like to totally derail the conversation.
No. Oh yeah, go ahead.
It came up in my chat, but I'm so curious how you guys are adapting. So just personally, like, do either of you do? How do you guys use if you guys use AI?
I don't.
You don't at all?
I've used Grok twice to answer, I think, questions about. It wasn't Jordan Peterson. I think it was about. Elon Musk and Doge and whatever. And I never even I tested it for the first time. 2 questions. That's it.
I use it ironically.
You don't use, none of you guys use it at all?
No, I use it a lot. I use AI a lot. It's just way better than Google, honestly. Like, it just simply does a much better job.
Wait, what's up with your mic? Your mic is
something's up with your mic, buddy.
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
That's better. Maybe it's
okay, there we go. Sorry. Yeah. No, I use AI a lot. AI is a lot better than Google. At this point, you search for information and Google seems to be essentially an SEO hell nightmare. There's been a lot of reporting on this, and it's certainly been my own experience. But AI does a pretty good job nowadays of synthesizing information. And also, importantly, it used to not do this, citing its sources, right? So again, it gives you a good sort of primer,
you tell that to RFK Jr., Econo Boy, in his recent health report.
Like you wouldn't want to, you wouldn't want to use AI as actual research, right? But of course, you wouldn't just paste a Google search result into a research paper either, right?
I believe that's the second version of the RFK report. Thank you very much for doing.
But no, obviously, I use it a lot, and I found it to be extremely useful for research. Most, in large part, not, insignificantly because Google seems to be so bad nowadays.
Wait, Hutch, why are you asking that question?
So same, by the way, Econo Boy. Like, the reason I asked is because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like my audience certainly skews to the left, and there was a huge anti-AI kind of vibe. It kind of started as these systems were first introduced, and especially in the beginning when we saw the sort of like more rudimentary systems generate video that was pretty laughably bad in the beginning. And so there were all these kinds of like easy dunks. There are some valid moral and ethical questions when it comes to stealing art, which like that's I think a conversation that's important to have. But I've noticed that the systems, so I just recently started to sort of like do both a Google search and a Chat GPT search. And I've had the same experience, Econo Boy, where it's like, you can search something on Google and then maybe scroll for like 6 pages to find the relevant information you're looking for. And then I just started to notice that I was actually getting like pretty good information from Chat GPT. And so I've been like talking about it more with my audience. And there's a lot of people that are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is bad. And so I'm curious, are you guys principally opposed on for Josiah and Pisco? Like principally opposed to AI or...
As somebody who is probably the least, I can say this with near certainty, as somebody who's almost certainly the least tech savvy person on this panel, my understanding of AI just comes from like raw intuition and a lot of pop culture consumed. So like I was a huge fan of Person of Interest, right, which was with Michael Emerson and Jim Caviezel, that TV show by one of the Nolan brothers that ran in like the mid 2010s. I am deeply skeptical about a thing which by definition is not only smarter than that which created it, but becomes exponentially so. And when I hear people who are much more educated than me on the topic and I don't have the ability to really understand, they're like, oh, don't worry. If we like shackle it early, it'll be just fine. I'm just like, I don't know how that works. If you're shackling, it's like, if we slap shackles on a thing that's exponentially stronger than us, we don't have to worry about it. It's like, doesn't it get to a certain point they could just snap the shackles? Like, to use a metaphor here, it's like, oh, if we just throw handcuffs on this fucking gorilla and get into the cage with it, it'll be fine. Like, I don't know. I am deeply skeptical, and I would need to understand from people who are both really educated on the topic and also can communicate to Luddites like me about how that is absolutely out of the question, because it sure doesn't fucking seem like it is. So I'm very concerned about AI.
You don't use AI because you're worried about Skynet?
That's not why I don't use AI. I'm just worried about AI as a notion. The reason I don't use AI is just, I'm just kind of old school. So like if I have a question or whatever, like when I do a Google search or whatever, they have the AI thing that comes up at the top in a lot of like prompts or whatever, like what
Copilot or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever. But no, I don't have a principal objection to using Grok or ChatGTP. I just like have not been in a situation where I've really needed to.
Do you feel like culture? Oh, go ahead, Pisco. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't think that these are the kind of AIs that will develop into general intelligences like you're talking about.
It's exactly what one of the characters on Person of Interest said right before he was killed by his own creation, Victor Frankenstein, motherfucker, thinking that the creation can never usurp and destroy the creator. No, but yeah, I don't know. That's me.
But do you guys feel like a cultural pressure from your own audience to avoid AI? Like, I get a lot of pushback.
There's some. I mean, I've certainly interacted with a lot of people who. I'm a mod on a Discord, and there was a discussion amongst the mod team of like, should we ban just AI art or AI creations in general? And it seemed like a lot of it just seems very ridiculous to me. Now, look, I obviously think if you want to commercializing AI art does seem ridiculous. Like, it seems like it doesn't make sense to me that you'd be able to copyright AI art because of the nature of how it's created. However, what I will say is that, I think a lot of artists in general think that they have a lot to fear from AI art. I just don't really see it personally, right? Like, AI art has a look and a feel to it, and I don't really see a world, within the next 2 to 3 years where like all of their jobs go away. The scant number of jobs in art that there actually are because of AI.
Oh, wow. Speaking, I totally disagree with you here.
Well, no, because I mean, think about it, right? Like for instance, like AI has been deployed by a lot of artists as like a tool, making them more productive in a lot of these circumstances. It does seem to reduce the sort of like the labor intensity of a lot of art activities, but you still need artists like using AI as a tool to do a lot of those things. You're not going to, you can't, like, if you're creating graphics for like Fox News, right? You're not just going, AI, create a graphic about this thing and just like throwing it up, because it's an imperfect technology. It doesn't necessarily do all the branding in sort of like human necessary structured requirements that you need for graphics like that. I don't know. It doesn't seem like something to fear immediately. The commercialization of it is ridiculous. Like, you probably shouldn't be able to commercialize it, but.
Well, if we take, for example, like video games, that is for sure going to disrupt a lot of video game artists. You already have a lot of gaming companies that have already begun to incorporate AI. And what you're right, you do need a human doing certain inputs, right? But you're talking about one human maybe doing the work that 20 humans might have done before that. And if we compare the way that the video has evolved, the video generation has evolved in the last 2 years, it's a fucking astonishing. Like, I assume you guys saw all the VO videos that were being posted last week when Google unveiled their model. It's, I mean, we are just, it's not perfect, right? I mean, to your point, I think you look at it and you still kind of see like, okay, I can still kind of see that it's AI. Well, what's that going to look like in 2 years? And then all of a sudden, you have a fucking game developer that's like, make me a map that it's a snowy biome and blah blah blah, and then it just shits it out in an hour. So
I think animators probably have, because that does seem to be one where it's like, man, it seems like you can just tell AI to animate a thing and it just does it, within maybe, it still might take a long time depending on processing limitations, but that's one where it does seem to be, significantly more productive. But I think that this issue, along with the issues of like every single scare from technology across history, is similar. It's like, look, the fundamental issue here is not, the fact that we got a new technology. It's the fact that our system does not equally distribute gains from anything, right? Period, right? This is a question for our distributive institutions, not a question of how we should try to limit the application of this technology. And again, I do agree with artists when they say that this shouldn't be commercializable at all. I think that to the extent that you use AI in commercial products, that's the extent to which parts of that system shouldn't be able to be commercialized or monetized or copyrighted in that same way. That's my, I think that's a pretty standard view. But, the idea that, for instance, we would shame people for using AI, generally speaking, because of concerns about like artists' jobs or the environment, it's like, well, look, we have ways to solve both of those problems, right? Our distributive institutions, and then energy efficiency, building out renewable energy, which is already happening, right? It just doesn't seem like a great, argument against the potential gains from technology. The last thing I'll say is that I saw a survey the other day. It was something like a quarter of businesses are incorporating AI into their productive processes, right? Like, this is the tech boom of you know, the 2020s basically that we're seeing most likely here. I'd be interested in Pisco's perspective. Like, I can imagine a shitload of legal work that is just hyper condensed on account of AI, you know, going through documents and like doing a lot of case research. Again, you have to be technical and a professional, because the AI is not perfect. It might, you know, I've seen instances where it cites a case wrong, or it calls the case a different name than it should be.
Makes up
but
fake
that's
names. No,
yeah,
for sure.
But but it does help significantly with a lot of the sort of paralegal, you know, labor processes of lawyers, for instance, just as an example.
And the systems themselves are vastly improving at a pretty remarkable speed. Like, so that's just my experience. But
yeah, the databases, like the Westlaw people and everything, they're making their AI stuff. It will absolutely help, you know, facilitate a lot of the busy work that some lawyers might engage in. But it's not gonna replace lawyers in the near term.
What about paralegals?
One, because I think that it will definitely affect paralegals for sure. Yeah. But it's not going to replace lawyers. Lawyers still, if for anything, right? Part of having a lawyer is just having someone who goes to a place or will represent that I am a real person and I'm advocating for this specific thing, or that I'm, you know, putting my name down and this is authentic. And so as long as there are exclusion rules about who can practice law and who can't, then by definition, if it's legally enforceable, to protect lawyers' jobs, then yeah, they're going to be protected to some degree. And also, again, inherently, the cases they're citing aren't always reliable. Sometimes it's cited for the wrong proposition. If you really push it, it will make fake cases. And there have been cases where individuals have been sanctioned because it made like fake cases and stuff. So just generally, I think it will definitely have a big effect in the legal industry, but it won't replace lawyers just yet.
Well, the tech billionaires, a lot of them envision like a technocratic state where AI does replace a lot of these systems and institutions, but we'll see how likely that is to happen.
Speaking of tech bros and institutions, and I haven't had too much time to delve into this, but you want to talk about a terrifying headline. This was one from that I caught a couple of days ago. I know a lot of people are talking about it, but you know what, Palanteer, I call it Palanteer because that's what I'm used to from The Lord of the Rings, but I think they pronounce it a different way, even though it derives from Tolkien. You know, Trump taps Palanteer to compile data on Americans. The Trump administration has expanded Palanteer's work with the government, spreading the company's technology, which could easily merge data on Americans throughout agencies. Have any of you like dove deeply into this particular story?
It's more of this shit, right? Like they're already using AI to check your opinions online and social media at the border. They're using AI for, you know, reportedly for military targets and shit like that. So this is not surprising at all, especially when Peter Thiel and the techno people supported Trump so heavily. You know, you have Elon Musk using AI for whatever he was doing with Doge. This is like, I don't know, dystopia type stuff, at least at some point, when we have these large tech oligarchs in charge of our, you know, in both of these large technology bases, but also capturing the government. That's a worst case scenario, especially for these so-called, you know, libertarians or Trump supporters who say they care about freedom. You know, they think of themselves as frontiersmen, you know, protecting the American way, but they're happy to just give and delegate authority to these weirdo, addicted to drug fucking tech people who are installing massive surveillance states and sampling on like everyone's rights and checking your opinions and shit. It's really dystopian, and I don't think we should trust it. We shouldn't trust Peter Thiel. We shouldn't trust these techno people. They all need to be regulated heavily.
The one thing that I'll say, again, I'm curious if any of you, like if Econoboy and Hutch have dove into this story or whatever, but the one thing that I saw from just my cursory glance was like some apologists saying, well, what's the danger if the government, if like individual agencies or departments have like, okay, so your Social Security number, your Social Security Administration has some information, the Treasury has other information, blah, blah, blah. What is the problem with making it more efficient and consolidating it? And again, this is, I guess, where Pisco in the legal background could say to this, but my understanding is the entire point is to cordon off bits of information from other parts of the government. Like, the fact that the Social Security Administration has bits of information that DOD doesn't need to have on you, or that even like mainline Treasury doesn't necessarily need to have on you. Like, it's the whole point where people who administer and attend to these agencies don't get the full fucking picture and need warrants and permission from legally valid either court orders or other like higher ups in the executive branch to get that information if they need it. It's not like, you don't want everybody to be able to open the lid in the federal government and see everything in your kitchen. That's my understanding,
That is an interesting point. I mean, is there a constitutional argument against this sort of data compilation?
It's tough to say because it's probably not a search or seizure. So the Constitution refers to searches and seizures. And if you're like, for example, giving over your information to a third party, there are doctrines that pretty much say that like that stuff is not considered a search. If like, you might need to get a subpoena to get it, but for the government to access it, that's not a quote unquote search. And so there are less restrictions on the government's ability to compile data about you that you're like willingly handing over. There's a case called Carpenter, I think, it's a Fourth Amendment case that limits the ability for the government to like get cell signal data. They might need to get a warrant for that. But in general, if you're handing information over to third parties, the protections over is much less. And especially if you're handing information over to the government, either because there's an obligation or because you're, again, voluntarily doing it, I don't know what kind of constitutional limits exist in the government's ability to just compile it in a particular way. So yeah, I'm not sure. By the way, I saw someone in the chat say, I don't know what a paralegal does. AI will absolutely affect paralegal work. I've worked with paralegals, I've had paralegals, and I know what paralegals do, and AI will 100% affect them. It'll affect what lawyers do. So whatever this guy's name, Thomas, I know what they do, and I know that AI will affect it. You're a fool if you think they don't.
Isn't there, tell me if you guys agree, but like, I kind of feel a little bit black-pilled on this kind of stuff. Like I view this sort of technology or this data gathering as somewhat inevitable. And so like, for example, when Snowden released what he did at the time, like I was not super outraged because I just assumed they were already doing that. Like if they didn't develop the technology to do that kind of surveillance, then that would have been kind of insane if their competitor countries or adversarial nations they know are developing that kind of technology and we didn't. That would be kind of a crazy disadvantage to put us at. And so I guess I kind of view this similarly. It's like, well, it's just kind of like only a matter of time.
Stuff and it's connected to foreigners, right? And I understand that there's like it's a little bit might be concerning for people, but it's a little bit more calibrated than an AI everything gathering everything, as opposed to the kind of it wasn't capturing full-on conversations. It was capturing metadata for sure, but it related to these kind of foreign targets and stuff. And it was mass amounts of information because of the nature of the HOP rules. But this I think is different on another level.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say because clearly data privacy has been an extremely low salience issue for the overwhelming portion of Americans, right? I mean, it's not clear to me that it's even necessarily high salience in places that they've passed regulations to protect data privacy for people. It seems like the politicians themselves just sort of technocratically sorted and they care about it. It's similar to like it seems like there's a lot more as a percentage politicians who care about like the Patriot Act and like repealing the Patriot Act versus the average American. They don't really vote on that issue. And so probably what it'll take is, maybe John Oliver had the right idea. He did a special on this a while ago where he was like, we got to make it hurt the politicians, right? So he started like trying to collect data on politicians, which was kind of funny. And so it's hard to say how they'll react, but I kind of agree with Hutch that unfortunately it does seem kind of inevitable because people don't really care about it. That being said, obviously, we should have data collection standards, right? I mean, probably companies just, this kind of data should be compartmentalized. A lot of it shouldn't exist. For instance, one of the things that, in response to Snowden, that the government did was they started, it sounds kind of bizarre, but they started compartmentalizing the top secret, classified information. Because what Snowden did basically was he just plugged a USB into a database and just like started dragging files into it. It's like, well, we probably shouldn't give everybody with a clearance like all the classified. You probably only need to have a certain need to know information. And so, if that's the treatment that's good enough for the intelligence community, well, it obviously is probably how we should handle, generally speaking, American data, because of not only bad actors within the government, but also people who might be trying to hack systems. Like if somebody hacks Treasury data, well, it sucks that they've got Treasury data, but they luckily haven't hacked like the entirety of like all of fucking America's, intimate data and details.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, we don't even, that's the problem is we don't really know even the reporting at the time that was discussing Doge's intrusion into Treasury and the Social Security Administration, all these other, we don't know the extent to which they got in and what information they had. And I mean, that's part of the, you know, what does Steve Bannon call it? The muzzle velocity flood the zone shit. Like, it's easy to forget this stuff. It's easy to forget that there were federal judges who were like, hold the fuck up. What are you doing in Treasury and what are you doing in Social Security and why? And the fact that the interim SSA administrator like had no fucking clue what was it like. Oh, that's the fact that all that has happened, and you hear the stories about, you know, what Trump is authorizing with Palanteer, and the fact that we're 5 months into this administration, it just makes you wonder what we'll find out by the end.
Yeah, no, the concerns I think are totally valid. I'm saying I'm black-pilled on it.
Where it's no, I wasn't challenging you. I was just okay. Saying to not even challenging a Conaboy there, but just adding some additional context. Like what we do know, like what little we do know about what they were doing and what information we were accessing is actually a woefully incomplete picture. Yeah. I actually am with you, Hutch, in the sense that this is something I genuinely and generally don't think about, because I imagine I'd be locked in some sort of like existential, you know, loop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, and again, I'm so boomer in terms of like my tech understanding and stuff. Like I don't know what is inevitable and what isn't. So I just kind of like triage it in my mind. But yeah, it's a fucking concern, and nobody with power and in a position to make a difference, I think, is taking it seriously. And I'll even go one further and say, like, let's take AI out of the equation, but something that's also tech related, like just crypto, right? So tech related, but little to do or not directly to do with AI. The amount of Democratic support for this like Genius Act, you know, which I don't know where the status is on that. I know it you know, it failed initially and then it got Democratic support, but that what it will permit, you know, presidents to do, like right now, there's no carve out preventing presidents of the United States to, you know, launch their own meme or stable coin, but it does forbid members of Congress to do. It's like, these are the people who have their hands on the ability to make a difference, and they're dropping the ball on something as relatively inconsequential as crypto, which I think it is compared to AI. I'm confident saying that, Luddite though I am. And I don't know. I don't think we have the people in position who really have a grasp or interest in trying to regulate this.
Especially if they don't read the bills, like fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene. There was AI language in the Big Beautiful Bill that prevented you for states from regulating for, I think, for like 10 years AI or something. And she's like, well, I guess if I knew about that, I would have voted against it. And yeah, so it doesn't really help if we A, have Luddite or non-understanding Congress people, or B, have people who don't read the fucking bill or know anything what's in it.
I mean, it's a fair point, but do you know who was one of the foremost AI experts in Congress, Pisco? Jerry Connolly.
That? Oh, wow, yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, man. Yeah.
I mean, there's a related story too. I don't know if you guys saw this. It could just be bullshit. I mean, it was just a TikTok or whatever. This person claims to be a DC insider, staffer, or whatever. And she claims that there is a rumor going around in all like in disconnected camps. So like everybody's talking about it. Like, have you guys heard about this story? Donald Trump apparently, reportedly, according to this one random person on TikTok who I just fully believe, but he's thinking about, they're trying to find a way to give Washington, D.C. to Peter Thiel, is what she's saying. Like a freedom city. Yeah.
This can't be a real story, Hutch.
I saw it on TikTok. I saw it on TikTok, so I assume it's real. I'll see if there's any reporting on it right now. Trump, DC, Peter Thiel.
I mean, obviously Trump has done some pretty outrageous things.
It's so plausible. Think about it. It's so plausible that this is real, is it not?
I'm sure there's some idiots. Yeah, I'm sure there's some idiots in Trump's administration who are saying something like that, like, "Oh, we're gonna annex Greenland or Canada 51st state." But like, no, I don't think that Peter Thiel is going to be allowed to turn DC into a corporate city.
Not whether
you can see him trying that, though.
Whether they want to. That's the question that Hutch is asking, is whether he would be willing to do so.
I think he would. It's so plausible that he would be looking for a way to maybe entertain that possibility. But yeah,
my monitor's shit out. Hang on one second. I gotta duck down here and handle it. You guys keep talking.
That's a great little still frame of Josiah.
You look very interested in what we're talking about.
He's being a little coy. He's being a little cute.
No, I agree with you, Hutch. Like, there might be some idiots in the administration that are thinking about something like that. But I mean, you know, that's not going to happen. I don't know.
That's how it starts. I mean, to your point earlier, like there's just not a lot of political pressure for Congress to act on data privacy laws. Like I know Elizabeth Warren is a little bit vocal about that kind of stuff, but you know, it's not that the concerns about data collection are not valid, but I just, yeah, I mean, we have these like pop culture references. So like, do you guys know a movie called Enemy of the State with Will Smith? It's like a fucking late 90s movie. And
yeah, yeah, I saw it.
It's all about like, you know, like the NSA, you know, kind of theorizes what the United States government is capable of. And like, you know, they can fucking zero in on him anywhere in the world. And they've got satellite imagery and whatever. And so then, you know, I think all of us just assumed that the United States government was, you know, that had access to technology where they could do these like massive surveillance programs. But then when we were confronted with the reality of what that actually looked like after the Snowden leaks, people seemed surprised by that. And anyways, I always thought that was interesting, but yeah.
Well, I think that one of the things that people don't, I've never really heard someone speak about this, but ironically, one of the things that I think prevents the government from doing more draconian things with that and making it a more high salience issue is literally our, you know, forever problems in this country with state capacity, right? You know, this is one thing that a lot of law enforcement agencies will say is like, man, we could be doing so much more shit with that data if we just had the people to do it, but we don't. We just don't have the resources to really sort of prosecute all these cases or look into everyone's data. But sure as fuck, they probably would if they had double the agents. But obviously they just don't. And so, you know, it's not that people shouldn't be concerned about that in some intrinsic sense, like you're saying. But, you know, in reality, it's pretty difficult for the government to do a lot of sweeping totalitarian things with the data that they have, literally just from a lack of capacity to do so. That shouldn't give people, you know, you shouldn't be sleeping great at night just because that's the constraint. But, you know, that is a real constraint that is persistent in our government, that we just don't hire enough people to do things.
Well, I feel like it's
Go
ahead.
No, you.
Okay. Well, now I was going to say, like, I feel like it's like, I feel like all of us probably just assume that the Trump administration, for example, is probably using AI to comb through people's social, like people here on visas. Like, I would be shocked if they didn't collect some kind of a database of all the people here on student visas, if they weren't currently, like literally right now, running systems to analyze their feed and sort of run a profile on them. And then, so there's some really like nightmarish applications of this technology for sure. But yeah.
But I wanted to talk about immigration there in that context as well. Which is that even assuming that they have those tools, as it kind of, to his point, and Conaway's point, like you're gonna need to hire people to physically locate people they want to like fuck with while they're in the country. It's a little easier when they're at the border and they're coming to you, right? But when they're in the interior of the country, you still need to pay bodies to go pick people up and to target them. And what you're seeing from the administration has not been quote unquote success, even though they're willing to deport people illegally. They're willing to do a bunch of stuff that's obviously criminal and corrupt, kidnapping people, sending them to gulags. The capacity problem is a limiting factor, which is one of the reasons why in the bill they're trying to dedicate additional, you know, tens of billions of dollars to this issue.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the left wing sort of reflex to, I mean, like, what should the left wing response to this sort of incoming rapid technological improvements be? Like
socialism, you know, Hutch.
No,
unironically, I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that. I mean, look, I just think
you're talking about like maybe like automating, and what is it going to do? And if we can automate 90% of work, what does a democracy even look like at that point? Nobody really knows. Do you have any theories, or what are the prevailing theories right now?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that, you know, I just think that when people like, I think that one of the issues, right, is that people will imagine this future. Obviously, it's hard to say what we'll really do with all these productivity gains. You know, historically, productivity gains have just gone right into higher levels of investment and thus more employment, right? So we haven't really been faced with this problem of like, oh, the technology's really truly taken all the jobs. AI uniquely presents an opportunity to do that, because if AI itself can be intelligent, well, then obviously you could see a scenario where like actually just like the work of humans using their brain could really start to go away. But that remains to be seen. Nonetheless, though, I mean, when people really quip with, oh, like, what do we do in that scenario? The answer is obviously just the socialization of that production, right? We cannot we can't have a capitalist framework that absorbs the gains for technology in a way that's truly equitable, in a way that kind of prevents the sort of like toxic democratic accumulation of capital. You know, and to be fair, if AI is as, you know, good in these like futuristic scenarios as people are assuming, oh, you know, AI is going to be so good that we can do like 80% of shit with AI. Well,
we
then
should assume that though, right?
No, and I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, but what I'm saying is that to the conservatives who are so scared of socially owning things, if the AI is that good, then the public owning it through the state and the democratic state is clearly a better way to manage that technology than billionaire A, billionaire B, billionaire C, billionaire D, all independently managing their own fucking, you know, super intelligent beings. It's clearly a better way to do this. You'd have to make at that point, AI is so powerful, you'd have to make the argument that having a private market for nuclear weapons would be a more safe way to manage nuclear weapons. No, right. You would clearly bring this into state ownership, and you would equitably and democratically manage it in that way. That's the only way that that's the only way to really manage such a potentially dangerous technology.
With these tech billionaires, they would just as soon coup the fucking United States government, I think,
absolutely,
before they allowed socializing these kinds of systems. And so,
well, yeah, I mean, you'd have to, you know, certainly, like you said, you know, there would be a potential, you know, kind of like you could say like an arms race where if the technology actually did get to be that good, you know, you would have to have the state jump in at some, you know, reasonably optimal point and say, look, at this point, you have a super intelligent sort of being in a sense, and we're not going to trust the management of this to private shareholders. That's completely ridiculous. Like, again, to the conservatives out there that are just completely balking at this idea, you'd have to make the argument that, again, having a private market, private shareholders decide what to do with our nuclear weapons, whether to deploy them, how to house them, how to maintain them, that would be safer and more secure for this country than having the state do the same thing. Like, obviously not. You need the state to do certain things, especially when they become a national security threat, when they become a systemic threat to your entire society. That's like the perfect role for the state. And so, you know, managing it that way would be very reasonable. I mean, I think that if AI is really on a trajectory to become what you're saying, Hutch, it's ultimately on a trajectory to either annihilate us all or become, you know, a socially owned piece of technology that benefits us all equally.
Do you have a preference for those two outcomes?
You know, I'm not a very religious person. So I guess I'd like to, you know, because on one hand, you could say I could get to heaven sooner. But, you know, really, I'd like to live as long as possible.
Well, since you're dressed like Jordan Peterson, do you believe in heaven?
You
That's where you're supposed to be like, what do you mean do? What do you mean you?
What do you mean by heaven? What do you mean the Bible?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I did agree to this Christian versus atheist panel, but I didn't commit to being a Christian necessarily, so...
What a fucking... I mean, Jesus Christ.
Can you mic down just a little bit? Just a little bit.
Turn it down?
Yeah, a little bit.
Turn it down.
What about now?
A little background noise.
Better.
What about now? Okay. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck happened. I've got this 49-inch or this monitor.
I got the same one, brother. You got the OLED model?
I don't know. It's a Samsung Odyssey G9 from like 5 or 6 years ago.
No. You got to get the OLED model. You got to upgrade.
Lavish consumption.
You got to upgrade. It's only like $1,100 too. It's not crazy.
I used to use this.
Only $1,100.
Well, the old model was $2,500. The one that he bought, he probably spent $2,500 on that. But I
can't remember. I can't remember. It was.
And you don't even play games on that monitor, which is
I use
crazy.
it for editing. No, two things. Okay, two things. Number one, I used to use this thing for editing, but number two, I do play games on this. Witcher 3.
Oh, okay.
Wait, can I ask the question that we're all thinking?
Sure.
What editing? You're one take Josiah.
Listen, you still have to add your lower thirds.
You still
got to have the intro. I've got to do post production on the audio because like the current like studio setup I've got, it's not sound treated. So like I've got the sound panels just kind of fucking laying on the floor. I'm not very I don't have a lot going for me, all right? I'm not very tech savvy, number one. And number two, I'm not very handy in terms of like renovation and shit like that. So like the thought of clearing all that shit out and, you know, using some sort of adhesive to hang this shit and then drill the shit in and make it absolutely perfect, I'd rather jump out the window. So I'm delaying the inevitable. So yes, there is editing. Thank you. About 5 minutes.
I'm impressed that you're able to do it in one take. You're able to do big segments in one humongous take.
Stop it. You've seen the process. You've seen me when when I fuck up and I go fuck and then have to start over again. You've seen
the whole thing.
There should be
a hard cut for Christ's sake. So I don't know what the
bro. I can't. And I'll be honest with you. I told you, like, I we are just at this point finalizing the details for like a scrimmage. A buddy of mine is going to be my editor for at least like 2 weeks. We're going to test it out because of a conversation I had with Boy, and because of Hutch and Pisco's edited content, which I love. I love the edited content, like the finally the zooms and the transitions where it whooshes and stuff like that. But I'm gonna need an editor, so yeah.
No, because you talk about burnout a lot. You've talked about like feeling a little bit of burnout. That's like the best thing you can do as a creator is just try to find a way to streamline your workflow, just to get into the jargon. But like, and that ties in, I guess.
Yeah,
you were talking about AI, for example, like. You get all your information from your videos. What if, let's just theorize, and do we all agree that this is going to happen? Like, what if, model 6 or 7 of ChatGPT is like 99.9% effective, and instead of doing a Google search and trying to get it just spit out the synopsis and allowed you to just immediately start talking about the.
You're probably right, but it's not just like yes, there's a research component too, but I just also need sources handy, like clips and visual guides as well. So it's like
it'll give you clips.
Yeah,
ask it for clips. It'll fucking.
You're right, and maybe that's the thing. Like I said, the reason I don't use Grok and ChatGPT is not out of like moral opposition to what I think the risks of AI might be existentially to the human. It's just like I'm just like old school, and if I need something, I go to Google. Or I mean, quite frankly, that's why I'm still on Twitter, is because for a content creator, Twitter is still a really good curation tool. Like I'd love to migrate totally to Blue Sky. The problem is Blue Sky's bookmark function is primitive in comparison. On Twitter,
and it's a bit smug. Let's be honest.
Say what?
It's Blue Sky. It's a little smug.
I'd say I don't mind that. As somebody, listen. I'm pretty sure all of us at some points. I know Pisco has. I know I have. Maybe not you and Econoboy, because you're much more personable. We've all been accused of smugness.
Well, listen. I mean, I think people should fully embrace their inner cringe lib. But even Blue Sky is it's a little much.
I like it. It's wholesome. It's wholesome. I mean, especially somebody who takes like this shit deeply personally when I see the negativity. But yeah, that's why I'm still on Twitter. As a matter of fact, I have 2 accounts. I have my shit talking account, and then I have my account where I collect all the tweets and clips and everything, and then I refer to that when I do my videos. Where was I going with that though?
We were talking about Grok.
You're smug.
No,
yeah,
that wasn't it. That really wasn't the thesis there.
Prick.
I mean, I won't dispute that. Oh, it's the monitor. You all roasted me about the monitor. But yeah, this thing just like shit out. Like it just went dead. Like it just went. It's not like the computer went dead. It just blacked out on me, and it does that from time to time. Is that what
that's a problem? Yeah. Well, you're out of warranty now.
Yeah, but I just assumed it was like an issue with the monitor, like that.
Make the upgrade. They have like, first of all, they have an even bigger one that's like 57 inches, so it's like comically large. But then I saw that.
Then they've got one. They've got one like that goes vertical, and it's like
that's the arc. That one is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
yeah, probably not. So I think we've exhausted the AI topic to the satisfaction of chat. I'm curious, with Pisco ramping up his debates and conversations, I will soon be reading Abundance, so we can have our conversation with Aaron and Joanna. I know, Hutch, you are in the middle of Abundance, or have you finished it?
I'm like 3/4 the way done, but I think I get the gist of it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what's new in terms of like everybody's content? Like, has anybody got any debates lined up or doing anything? Fill me in. What's new?
An alumni of the show, Soy Pill. He's supposed to be on a big show this Friday. I don't know if I can be too specific, but it's a show that happens on Friday. And
oh my God, is he gonna go swimming in a pool?
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
it'll be really good because that guy can go scorched earth.
Yeah, he's a really good debater.
He has an amazing ability to go from like a very like straight-laced, just kind of like standard conversation to unhinged very, very quickly. Not unhinged, but like he can certainly turn on the opposition very, very quickly, and I think
he asked Ro Khanna if he was prepared for Trump the day that Trump calls him rotarded. He asked Ro Khanna that to his face.
I saw that.
That's a great question, honestly.
Well, it's interesting because you say this, and I was looking for a public announcement about this thing, and I'm scrolling down, and the third thing I see on his page is he participated in the Great Titty Debate. Yeah,
that's
this
right.
guy's...
Yeah. The soy pill, he's really doing it all, frankly. And, you know, Tim Pool, I mean, I don't know. There's not many... I really can't think of another... I cannot think of another alternative media influencer who has had as many smaller creators on as Tim Pool. I don't know. I can't think of one. Maybe there are some, but it feels like, you know, people like Piers Morgan, they'll have, you know, you gotta have like 1 million subscribers to go on Piers Morgan, it feels like. Or, you know, I think Crystal and Sagar have had Pisco on, you know, so, you know,
he's angling hard to be their chief legal correspondent. Like, that'd be cool. Like, no, that'd be cool. Like,
angling. There's no angle.
Pisco gets part of the desk right there. Like, the camera, the aperture, like, zooms out, and there's Pisco there at the end, you know. Court's now in session, and then he gavels in, and, like, there's a sweet intro. That'd be cool as fuck.
That's right. He's got the robe on.
I respect people who take this moment seriously and who talk shit about Trump. And that's why Aaron and Schrader and I are going to be reviewing the next Her Take together.
Bro. Did you watch? So she at my request has been reviewing that shit regularly, and good on her. I can't even watch her review of it because I'm so repulsed by what Anna Kasparian has become in terms of her advocacy. I can't even watch a review of the review.
The JQ
yes, yes.
Yeah, I saw
Hold
that.
on, Messiah, if we were to compare this to the Star Wars prequel, at what stage of Anakin's development is Anna on? Is she episode 2, or is she, she reached episode 3 at this point? She's gone a full dark side turn.
Dude, she referenced dancing Mossad agents on September 11th. I mean, I don't know how much far that's like. You're a stone's throw away from full-on QAnon at that point, in my opinion. Or at the very least, you're like Alex Jones. Like, at that point, you're just Alex Jones territory. Chad, if you didn't know, she's like, even Fox News covered it at the time, which is obvious. First of all, like, is that supposed to verify the information? Am I supposed to treat that as a reputable source? But she went on Twitter the other day and was like, I'm old enough to remember watching Mossad agents dance as the towers fell on September 11th.
By the way, this was seemingly unprompted. Like, there was, why did she do this?
Apropos of nothing.
Like, it made no sense.
Apropos of nothing. No, yeah. So I was interesting because I, of course, as a good nerd, was taking that question very seriously, and it occurs that there is no point at which this maps on, because Anakin, for all of his terrible, terrible crimes, I don't recall moments of sadism like the way that we would associate with the Emperor. And the reason
kill an entire room filled with
children.
No.
He took pleasure in that.
That's why I said sadism. Sadism. There was no point
where he had to do.
Yeah. Well, no, all right. Do what must be done. Yeah. Yeah, like at no point was he like maniacally laughing or cackling the way that we would associate with the Emperor. No, like, no evidence of sadism, obvious war crimes, terrible person. But the reason that I bring that up is because, so I'm not subscribed to the Young Turks, but when I know there's a big story that should prompt them to criticize the Trump administration, you bet your ass I go and check and see how their coverage is. And, Anna is like over here, she laughed at something. She laughed at something Trump did where even Cenk was like, no, I'm not going to laugh at that. What was it? It was I think it was something about the big, beautiful bill or something about it. And Anna reacted with like, almost like detached amusement. Like, oh, like this is fucked up, but it's Trump being Trump and it's making me laughing in a way that she doesn't do with the and she even said some like other things about Democrats. She's like, I love to beat up on Democrats, but there's this weird sort of acceptance that I have seen her give of the Trump administration, or even at times I think even Cenk doesn't go that far, and just obvious like rating him on a curve. And then I saw in one of the most recent Her Take episodes, I did not watch it, but I saw and I'm like, oh fuck this, and clicked off. Jack Posobiec was sitting next to her. So
oh my God.
Yeah, bro.
Wow.
DMCA?
Do you know if they DMCA their podcast on YouTube?
Aaron would have to say, I don't know if she's watching now, but she streams it all the time.
Just on Twitch though? Is she on YouTube as well?
She's on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh,
she's
okay.
on YouTube. Yeah.
Probably
no, I just, yeah. Pisco, what do you think? Did you watch any of her take stuff?
I watched. Oh wait, I've only watched like 10 minutes of it. Listen, it looks so badly produced, and those women are, I'm sorry to say, very, very, very boring. Especially that one woman, well, Anna, but also Amy Dangerfield. Like I can't process things she said. They're always like the
because
most
she's British?
basic take. She's not British. She's Australian, I think.
Oh fuck.
I think she's Australian. Yeah. It's just like I can't process what she's saying, and so it's a big problem. It's always the most basic thing. So I figured I needed like a companion to help me get through them. I want to actually watch the Jack Posobiec thing because Jack Posobiec is one of like, I think he runs the End Wokeness account as well, and he is one of the lamest Trump shills of all time. And
he was a Pizzagator, bro. He was a Pizzagator.
Yeah, well, is it? I believe it. Yeah, he used to be a member of some government agency. I forget.
He claims
he claims to be like CIA or Defense Department something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Who the hell
Before
knows?
I got big at all, I was in Austin at one of the it was Destiny was there with Alex Jones, and I went there to watch that, and Aaron was there as well, and the actual Justice Warrior dude, he showed up too to crash it. Jack Posobiec was on that stage, and there's a Q&A session at the end, and one of my like pre-making it big moments that I was really proud of is that they had a Q&A session. It was all about the Twitter files, and you know, Jack was lying about it, obviously, and exaggerating it. But anyway, he said so many things about, you know, it's really inappropriate and wrong and blah 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 and unconstitutional for government actors to try to pressure social media companies. And so I hit him with the example in the Q&A session about Trump trying to get Chrissy Teigen's tweet taken down when she called him a pussy ass bitch, and just to see him melt on, and I kept pushing it. I was like, that was because that was a face-to-face thing, you know, where you know the dynamic is totally different. I had the microphone, and I was like, are you gonna condemn it, or are you a total hypocrite? Are you a fucking hypocrite? Like, blah, blah. We went back and forth, and finally he's like, yeah, that was really wrong. And I'm like, then maybe you should be focused more on your side of the aisle because they're blatantly more censorious than my side. And he's just a fucking loser. He really is.
There's some really funny lore with him. He had a Bumble account when he had either a wife or a fiance.
No.
People found the Bumble account. He said, "Oh no, somebody just stole my. Somebody used a different email. They stole my identity." Yeah. And then Bumble, you could argue this is probably unethical. Bumble came out and said, "Nope, that's your email," and like fully identified him. And he just coasted on that. But dude, he was a full-on Pizzagator, and then after the election he tried to distance himself from it, but he's a fucking
look at the like I think her take is like a very clearly AstroTurf thing. Like they have 40,000 subscribers on YouTube. They get like a few thousand views per video. I mean, it's also clear what they're just look at just type in her take, go to their podcast YouTube channel, and just look at their video titles, right? It's clear what they're trying to do here. Anna Kasparian blasts political hypocrisy on both sides. Did Apple exploit China? Wait, hold on. Did Apple exploit China, or did China exploit Apple? Real ID, national security measure, or globalist Trojan horse? Epstein lies are collapsing. Bondi's tapes claim, right? Like it's like the whole point of this show is to have a bunch of people who both sides everything into trying to get people to think that both sides are in any way comparably bad, right? Like, look, we can't say this over and over again. I mean, maybe it's boring for the audience. Let us know in the comments when when the VODs get posted later. But like, there's a difference between like when I say, oh, you know, some of the stuff in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is good, the full expensing, whatever provisions. I'm not a big fan of the corporate tax, this and that. There's a difference between saying that and saying, well, I don't know. I mean, is it a good piece of legislation? There's some good things in it. Like, maybe it is good. Like, that would be a stupid thing to say, right? That would be fucking completely a moronic take on this bill. Well, there's some things I can agree with, and the Democrats are against those good things. So, I don't know. Maybe the sides are the same. Maybe this bill's actually... It's like, no. Don't... It's a misrepresentation of the framing of these issues. It's the complaint that liberals have had about the climate change debate for 30 years when Fox News has an oil executive and a scientist, debating whether or not climate change is real, because the presentation of that debate, and I am sure that is a framework that Anna and Jenka 5 years ago would agree with me on saying this, the implication is that there's a sensible both sides narrative to this issue. This isn't a subjective matter. 90%, 95, 99% of scientists agree that climate change is real and that it's man-made. So just by presenting the debate in that way, you're misleading people. And that's essentially in its most foundational sense, that is the criticism of shows like Her Take or Dave Rubin's Both Sides Bullshit, or when Bill Maher does the same thing. Like, it's just, it's misleading, right? You can obviously agree with Republicans, you can criticize Democrats, but we shouldn't play this game of pretend that they're equally comparable with regards to their toxicity for the country long term and how good they are for people.
So was Reagan based for ending the fair use rule? Or not fair use?
Fair use?
Not fair use. It was
fairness doctrine?
The fairness doctrine, yeah.
I don't know much about the fairness
link
doctrine.
Link it for me. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was an FTC guideline that said that you needed to get back. News media was way bit different back in the day, and so like news organizations were literally obligated by this federal regulation to allow for equal time for opposing views. And a lot of people think that getting rid of the fairness doctrine was a really bad idea. I mean, it did lead to things like Fox News, and that kind of thing.
I think the fairness doctrine, I could be mistaken, but I think the fairness doctrine had to do with political candidates and the idea of giving equal time to people running for office, not necessarily like the political content of speech. Now, insofar as it had to do with how you were running for office, I think it would affect you. And I think that's probably sensible that if you have people from major parties,
it
running
wasn't just candidates, by the way. I'm looking at it right now. It was
okay,
just like anytime you talked about political topics, you had to
you believe Grok, Hutch? No, I don't.
Google search, just so you know.
I'm joking. I don't like those doctrines. I don't like that the government get involved in what's fair, what's unfair. I am just a free speech cuck in that way.
I agree.
So I did a video about this, but I want you guys to see this because I'll be honest with you, I was pretty impressed. How many of you are aware of Scott Galloway? You guys know Scott Galloway?
Someone in my comments the other day was like, you really should not have these femcells on to talk about men's issues. You need to listen to Scott Galloway. He explains all the men's issues. So I don't know who he is, but
he's I can't remember what. Go ahead.
Nope. Sorry, my cat.
I can't remember what school, like where he's a professor or whatever, but yeah, he's like a liberal. Like he speaks on business issues and men's issues and stuff like that. He has a podcast with Kara Swisher, which is really good, and one with Jessica Tarlov called Raging Moderates, also really good. So he was on Piers Morgan, and the topic turned to Trump, and he was debating Kevin O'Leary. And I feel like this is just so good because this is the first time I've ever seen Morgan take seriously a criticism of Trump's corruption in a way where he didn't like heckle or interrupt or do anything like that. He just like, well, fuck, I've got no response to that. But I was just really impressed with how Galloway distilled this. And like the overall topic of the conversation was like Musk versus Trump and everything else. So like, 4/5 of this video is Galloway ripping Musk a new one. And then at the end here, they turn to Trump. So I just want to play
Let's watch it.
That he's creating all this global chaos purely for personal gain. Given that when I've interviewed him over the last 20 years, I can't think of a single interview where he's not mentioned A, the way that China in his eyes has been ripping off America, and B, that tariffs are not a very effective weapon to restore America's economic power. So it's not like this is the first time he's talked about this stuff, but you genuinely believe it's all just a way to make himself personally richer?
Well, okay, so I'll acknowledge I suffer from Musk derangement syndrome. I also suffer from basic pattern recognition. He has taken tariffs up or down 50 times. 50 times, taking markets way up, way down. And the net effect, as far as I can tell, is one deal with the UK where we're getting some aerospace technology and Aston Martin engines for 10% tariff versus 15%. There has not been a single deal of any material value struck here. And then the morning that he announces huge tariffs that take the markets into one of their biggest one-day declines, his top cop, the Attorney General, sells her Donald Trump media stock. Zero-day options volume has been the days he takes a tariff up or down. Basically, insider trading laws are no longer in effect. When he can open a Swiss banking account in the form of a meme coin the Friday before his inauguration and people can put money in or take money out, and nobody knows. And just 10 wallets made billions, while 70 or 80,000 lost billions in the subsequent weeks. We have a level of grift, insider trading, or what used to be considered insider trading, and market manipulation, the likes of which we haven't seen. So wouldn't he be stupid for him and his cronies? Autocracy is based on the following. You punish your enemies, you threaten lawsuits against them, you announce tariffs against them, and you make your allies billionaires. It seems like there's additional options trading and market participation right before he announces these tariffs going up or down. Because the net effect for America so far has just been a damage in our reputation. They had to send out a letter the other day telling nations to come to the table. This guy is literally the worst poker player in the world. He announces a 145% tariff against China, and before they even respond, he reduces it to 30%. It's like showing up to a poker table, going all in with bluster, and then before anyone can respond, saying, I fold.
This guy's good.
The whole world is saying to America and the Trump administration regarding his sclerotic, reckless, and quite frankly, stupid tariffs, the same way Logan Roy responded to his children in succession. You are not a serious people. All of this has done is reduced our reputation and created incentive for other nations to reroute their supply chains around us. And there are discussions, but they're not happening between America. They're happening between Japan, South Korea, and China, who for the first time in decades are talking about economic agreements. I had dinner with the CEO of Alibaba in Europe, who is touring Europe and selling the Baba Cloud into European companies who are working with AWS. Kevin, you want to see a reduction in the revenues of your small and medium-sized businesses? Let us continue to damage our reputation globally with a series of nonsensical tariffs, reductions, increases. Our brand, the U.S. brand now means toxic uncertainty. No one knows how to plan their business against this man who goes up and down. So he's either stupid and doesn't understand economics, see above every tariff in history or every tariff policy,
yes,
or he has decided, I know, I'll take the markets up and down and let the people close to me and who support me trade in this and make billions.
So yeah, I thought that was stunning. And again, Piers Morgan, who will, I mean, he's part of that adversarial British journalist class like Mehdi Hassan. You know, he'll interrupt, and if he feels he needs to make a point, or if the other person he just sat there and just fucking took it on the chin. I loved it.
He goes where the wind blows, though. Piers does, and Trump is just not on the same high he was before the election. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that that's like.
Oh no,
a testament to Scott Galloway. I mean, I take your point. I mean, like, he was very impressive, articulate. I mean, I want to see more of that guy. That was impressive.
Well, Piers, I think that Piers, people get really mad at Piers, but people have to keep in mind that's what he wants, right? Like, if you can really model out how Piers will react or moderate a situation, it's essentially going to be I would say like 10-20% where the wind is blowing, where he thinks the wind is blowing, but also just like what can generate the most outrage, right? You know, he loves it when people fucking hate on him for being a Trump supporter. He loves that, right? You know, it's anything to generate clicks. That's one thing that Piers absolutely recognizes. You know, not to a greater extent than many people in the news media recognize this as well.
He's awesome. There's a reason that he's covering,
a master of it.
Yeah, there's a reason he's been covering Diddy and like some of these like other like, you know, non-political stories. And even I don't know how this has affected his Israel Palestine moderation. I know he's been taking
he's really shifted his rhetoric there.
He's been taking a turn towards you know, the pro-Palestinian position. I don't know, is that where the wind is blowing in terms of clicks?
Yes, I mean, support for Israel, not just domestically but internationally, is cratering because the situation, as bad as it was, escalated recently with the deprivation of humanitarian aid. And so, you know, that I mean, Econoboy, you're probably more plugged in than I am, maybe, but that would represented a pretty big shift. I mean, there were I've said it before, but 80% of Gaza relies on that aid, and so they were on the verge of a cataclysmic famine, like an actual cataclysmic famine.
Well, deaths from famine had been ticking up for a little while, especially in response to aid. And you know, I think a lot of like more center left people for a long time, you know, they're more comfortable kind of like both siding the issue of Israel. And you know, I think especially, I don't know. In my view, I think it's difficult to kind of reckon with the full historical accounting of Israel and Palestine and come out with the conclusion that, oh, this is, it's a sensible both sides issue here. To me, my intuition is to fall heavily on the side of the Palestinian people in this regard, and not really the Israeli government. But when you start to see, the entirety of aid get shut off for, what was it, like 60 full days where no aid was let in, starvation deaths ticking up, and now you're seeing, the full consequences of that, where people are so desperate to get aid that Israel is kind of like, packed a shitload of people into these like aid corridors. And it looks completely dystopian because it is, right? This is a condition that Israel has kind of imposed on the people of Palestine. And,
and there were two different shootings. There were two different shootings when there were Gazans that showed up at these various locations to get aid. There was a shooting 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday, where it was like 20 to 30 Palestinians were shot by Israeli forces while they were trying to get aid. And so,
I didn't even read about that. I mean, yeah, but it's I don't know.
Really
it's when you see stuff like that, when wars happen in HD nowadays, I think it's very difficult to come out on the side of the Israeli government in that regard. And so I think people like Piers and many liberals, even yourself, Hutch, I think recently you had said you would describe the conditions of Gaza as a genocide because of the withholding of aid. A lot of more like centrist people have kind of, and it's not trying to infer your centrist, but a lot of more like Fencity people in regard to the Israel-Palestine issue have kind of come around to that because of the aid pauses. And, that's sensible that if the IDF does even, crazier stuff, then people are going to be more radicalized against them, right? So
it's an untenable position domestically as well. I mean, the popularity for Israel is going down massively, especially among young people and among older Democrats. This is just a mess that Trump promised that he was going to be able to solve. It's not being solved, and it's so, I think, despicable that we now have an administration where we can't trust that they're even on the level with the American people, with each other, but also with their own word and their own deals, right? Like, so we have, what's this advisor? I keep forgetting his name that they're sending around everywhere. No, they're sending him around everywhere. His name
Witkoff.
Steve Witkoff.
Yeah,
yeah. Like they make a deal with Hamas. The deal purportedly contained provisions both to get all the hostages free and to stop Hamas from governing over Gaza. And, Trump takes that deal. You would think, great deal. Isn't that what Israel's been asking for, or that they're claiming to be asking for? But they can't even, Hamas comes out and accepts the deal, and Israel says no. And Witkoff and the Trump administration act like, oh yeah, that we never made that deal, or that was them, or they're being unreasonable. And so at this point, there's no credibility on this issue from the administration, and it's just a mess, and it's a disaster, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's very clear at this point that this is a conquering army, and they want to take over Gaza, and they want to kick all the people out or kill them all.
Can I push back a little bit on that, on the deal? The deal, so like it is true that I think Hamas offered to dissolve the government in the like administrative wing of Hamas, but the big sticking point there was that they wanted to maintain their military until Palestinian statehood was. I'm not saying that shouldn't be a deal that we should pursue, because like literally anything to stop the carnage at this point would probably be better, right? But like, yeah, that was a sticking point.
Just some other, I guess. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, on that front, Hutch, I wonder what the war aims are, because if the war aims are let's demilitarize Hamas, have we gotten closer to that? Has Israel's? I'm not saying this to you to be accusatory, but more to like question: is this actually to make sure that Hamas is destroyed as an entity? Because there are some reports that they have more fighters than they used to, or that they're growing in strength, or that they haven't been. We're going now on a year plus, and the progress seems to have stalled.
No, I'm not treating Israel like a good faith interlocutor. Is that what you say? I'm not saying. It's obvious that the goal right now is to just permanently ethnically cleanse Gaza. So yeah.
Yeah. Was there anything you had to say about that, Econoboy, before we change the topic to some other odds? And
no. Let's wrap up. Yeah, let's change the topic.
Just real quick here. I saw this headline earlier. Pisco, did you see it? Judge rules Trump's deportations to El Salvador under Alien Enemies Act were illegal. This is from Judge Boasberg earlier today.
Yeah, so these are the individuals who were never they never got habeas petitions, I think, in a particular place. And so once you haven't like filed for a habeas petition while you're inside the country, I think that the jurisdiction, or the venue, I should say, goes back to DC. And so Boasberg actually, I think, does have the right venue in this particular case to observe cases that never had a petitions filed. And yeah, I mean, it's obvious that these were illegal. We already knew it was illegal. The Supreme Court already ruled 9-0 that these were illegal deportations. And we still have people who are arguing, like Tim Pool and Viva Frei did the other day, that it's somehow questionable whether it's legal or illegal to do these deportations in the way they did them. So yeah, obviously illegal. At this point, we also have a ruling from Judge Zinnes, I believe, to publicize some of the docket, or at least some of previously were filed under seal, certain documents about Kilmar Berger Garcia. We're going to see where this ends, because I'm incredibly nervous and worried about the state of our country and the constitutional crisis that is going to emerge if the administration stops listening to the courts vis-a-vis these illegal renditions.
I don't know how much traction this stuff gets in terms of the public, because I did see that Trump has rebounded a little bit with his polls, not a lot, but on immigration, it was the case that when we were talking to Crystal Ball, he was still slightly underwater with immigration, but I do think he's slightly above now, according to the more recent numbers. And but one thing I do think might start to change people's minds is, I don't know if you guys saw, there was footage where ICE did a raid at some restaurant, and they just like fully tackled this guy that ended up being an American citizen. But they ended up detaining him anyways for resisting arrest. And the video itself is not great. The guy, I think, has like a bloody lip or a bloody nose or something like that. This is something I think has the potential to change people's minds, maybe. Curious what you guys think.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think one of the reasons why ICE officers tend to show up unmarked, you know, without badges and stuff like that, or not without badges, but without any sort of external presentation that they're ICE, is literally to try and avoid that from happening, right? Try to avoid cameras and stuff like that from capturing their, you know, their operations, right? Because it is such a brutal thing. And that's very unfortunate. I mean, I think that people, you know, I didn't think that the immigration issue was going to significantly stall Trump's popularity. I mean, to me, the big things that would cause Trump to take maybe a sustained dip in popularity would be like a recession. Now, immigration could transitively cause a recession. If you deport 10 million people, probably a recession does happen. But, you know, directly speaking, unfortunately, the cruelty of his immigration policy, even from his first term with the crazy imagery of kids in cages, it really didn't seem to affect his popularity more than like on the margin, you know, maybe like 5% of people. What it did do, however, and what I think it'll do as well with this term, is it certainly galvanizes the left-wing base of people, right? You know, it certainly gives left-wing people a significantly more motivation to go out and protest, to go out and vote, to organize in general. And I think that's what'll, you know, ultimately the downfall of MAGAism and Trumpism isn't going to be conservatives coming to their senses. It's going to be Democrats getting out and voting and just like overwhelming them at the polls.
Yeah. How do Democrats, because there's no question, you guys would agree, right? But there's no question that like there is a rise of nativism in this country. I think that's pretty apparent at this point. What can the Democrats do? I mean, I've said that maybe they could start. I mean, I think we need to hire like really capable filmmakers to start telling human stories in compelling ways. And then, you know, start like a massive social media project where you actually put a face to the name instead of like reading the name Kilmar Berger or whoever like is suffered as a result of ICE draconian measures or whatever. But this is kind of a problem. Like, do you guys not worry about the future of America? This is a country based on immigration, and now we're seeing this really strong nativist turn.
Well, I would argue not even just that. I think that there's been in kind of multiple vectors a rise in social progressivism, not just with respect to immigration, but we've seen, you know, consistent polling for like on LGBTQ issues, like support for gay marriage has dropped substantially. Mostly, I mean, pretty much among Republicans. I can't remember where it was.
A little bit with Democrats and independents, but
yeah,
with the Republicans, it's down to 40% when it was as high as 55%, I think.
Right, and that is a problem. And actually, you know, I have not had a chance to talk to Brad Palumbo, but he messaged me the other day, and we were he wanted me to go on his show. I think it was today, as a matter of fact, So shout out to him if he's watching. But I got to say, I saw a tweet of his as I was scrolling a couple of days ago on this topic, and he was like, I blame the left for this. And it's just like, I just got to say, like, that's such a fucking stupid thing, and it's beneath him, quite frankly. The right has agency, and I understand. He's burned a lot of credibility with the right because he is a principled critic of the Trump administration at this point. But we are not responsible for your side of the aisle being fucking crazy. If that's the case, we could do an infinite regression and blame whatever excesses you think are on the left on you all being fucking crazy in your social conservatism for decades. So miss me with that shit. The right is responsible for the right. The left is responsible for the left. And anyone who tells you otherwise, I'm sorry, is just missing the fucking plot.
Yeah. I was just gonna say as well. Look at what they're actually getting angry at, the conservatives. Like I've heard this before. It's like it's the left with all their fucking pride parades and all their fucking rainbow branded merchandise. Not that I would have any of that myself personally, as you can see. But that's the problem that we're seeing. And it's like, guys, I mean, if the thing that the left is doing that gets conservatives just so fucking upset is just representing gay people as a normal part of American society, from the media to having like rainbow branded shit to having pride parades, then that's just a fight that people on the left need to just be willing to have, because that's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent Brad. I think his contention was, and I could be regurgitating.
No, he said the same thing when we spoke.
Yeah,
he seems to blame the left. Yeah.
Yeah, but was his issues with trans people or what he calls like the trans movement, or what that is causing a social regressivism with respect to acceptance for gay marriage.
Yeah, but even that, like, even if you were to say, oh, well, the reason, just think about the logic of that, right? The reason why people are against gay marriage is because of trans representation. Like, this is just not a criticism that is acceptable in any, there's no like framework of the left is at fault for people being more bigoted against gay people that is sensible, that is actionable. Like, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, at the end of the day, and look, it's not, this is obviously Brad saying this, who's not on the left, but I do have, to answer the chatter's question, I do have the matching pants, but I'm not wearing them right now. Wink, wink. But no, but like, seriously though, I do see that there's an impulse amongst a certain segment of the left where, we really want to like shoo away all these social issues. We really want to back away from them, right? Retreat to safer ground, as I think Brown Wu said on Twitter. That's kind of her phrasing. And it's like, look, I do understand where people are coming from. Like, I understand intellectually that impulse, but man, it just feels like the wrong thing to do. It's like, these are issues of civil rights.
I'm really with you on this one, Econo Boy, just to be clear.
Yeah. No, I wasn't referencing Hutch or anything, but that's
no. I'm just, I just want to voice. I mean, I think you're right. I think like this is I think a modern day civil rights issue, and I think like we're in a really ugly moment. But I do think this moment will pass. I do think that people will look back on this moment and regard it as cruelty. It's just abject cruelty. It just seems like so much of the modern conservative project right now is just rooted in cruelty, in humiliation. And we're not going to be in this moment forever. And I think there will be some recompense at some moment. I mean, it is interesting. What do you guys think about, like, what do you call it? Like rainbow capitalism? Like, it's kind of interesting that we're not really seeing a lot of like pride flags and
leftists who criticize rainbow capitalism, 100% correct. 100% correct. Okay, because to me, the fundamental criticism is like, look, this is all aesthetic. These companies don't actually give a fuck about gay people or the civil rights of gay people. These are companies
fair weather
we're talking about. Well, yeah, obviously. Like, look, what is a corporation incentivized to do? Make money, right? Like, that's the only thing a corporation rationally needs to care about. And so, of course, it's the case that as soon as the wind blows a little bit to the other direction, they're going to completely get rid of all of that pride bullshit, because they never cared about it in the first place. I mean, anybody on the left who is just kind of on the capitalist liberal left who actually, in their heads conceived that there was a world where these corporations would be legitimately on the side of social justice. I mean, that's ridiculous to think that. It's ridiculous.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, because to wrap it up, because I know Pisco said that he's got to go in a few minutes, but just like this thing right here, like I kind of get the criticism the left are adults. I actually heard Pisco address this in a conversation. I can't remember who it was. I was listening to. It wasn't the Viva Frei one. It might have been the one you had with the Trump supporter. yesterday or whatever. Like, I'm just so sick of this. When it comes to the right, they have no agency. Like, trigonometry does this all the time. The left is responsible for the right, and even with Trump himself, while it's ridiculous, you can't take what he says at face value. It's just horseshit. These people are adults, and they have agency, and therefore they should be held accountable for whatever transgressions they may or may not have committed. It's ridiculous to vicariously blame somebody else. And again, Trump in particular, the president of the United States, 80 years old, we don't hold that standard to anybody else. And
I asked him, can you think of a single time where Trump has apologized or taken responsibility? I said, or taken responsibility. And he's like, no, I can't think of one time. And then I gave him a sample phrase. I was like, do you think that he would ever say something like the following? Like, I didn't have any information about that, but ultimately I'm the president, so the buck stops with me. Could you even imagine him saying that? And he's like,
Biden apologized multiple times. Fuck, Biden even said something to that effect over the Afghanistan withdrawal. He was like, the buck stops here. And you never hear something like that by Trump.
And you can't even imagine him saying, it would be so out of character for Trump to say something just like, I own it because I am the president.
It's an attitude that's proliferated among the entire, like that Joni Ernst thing that we kind of led with. I don't even know if we were live when we did it or if we were bantering, backstage before we went live here. But, that whole Joni Ernst thing about the Republican healthcare plan is just like, everybody dies, get used to it. I mean, she fucking doubled down on that. This MAGA troll, never apologized, doubled down, give the finger to, whoever's criticizing you, that Roy Cohn, attitude, which was instilled in Trump. It's not even just locked into Trump. It's everywhere in the elected GOP. And that makes them, they're already dangerous. And I think that makes them so much more so, this idea that, shaming them, that their shamelessness is their superpower. They don't give a fuck.
Well, to Brad's point, I feel like that would have some validity if the right was acting in good faith with respect to their issues that they're bringing up with queer people. But we know that that's not the case. Like, the reason why they elevate things like, trans issues is because they know that they can weaponize fear that people have over something that maybe they don't understand or is different from their, daily lives to, paint a picture that is just not true.
Let's just flip it. And this is what I mean. Poor Brad's not here, but it's just like, let's just imagine all the shit that the right has done over the past. Let's just say, let's look at MAGA. MAGA represents certainly a plurality, if not a majority of the right, at least a plurality, if not, they are the controlling interest. And they rejected the 2020 election, tried to stage a fucking coup, reelected a man who was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. So imagine a liberal were to say, or progressive or Democrat, because of all this like shit that the right has done in these very specific issues, my support for the right to have voting rights has plummeted. I just don't think conservatives should be able to vote. Would Brad be like, no, that actually makes sense. That's the right's fault that you feel that way? No, he'd probably be like, that's a little extreme. Your disagreement with this particular thing over here should not bleed over. So even if you have an issue as a conservative with trans people, I think it's fucked up, but let's say, why would or should that affect your support for gay marriage? There's no rational basis for it. Right. You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I don't get it. But I digress.
Now, hold on. Before we leave, because I feel like we're about to leave, I've got to ask Pisco. I was requested once again to get an update. We have 2 shows until your very own city elects the Democratic nominee for the mayor's election. Yeah. Pisco, are you ready and prepared to make an endorsement?
I am ready and prepared to make an endorsement. I'll make that endorsement when I'm back in New York City, which will be over the weekend. I'll make that endorsement.
Come on, you got to make it on the show, though. Wait until next Wednesday, at least.
The pollsters...
I'll think about it.
The pollsters that I follow, there seems to be a pretty broad consensus that it's a real uphill climb for that progressive guy, right? Like, Cuomo seems...
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. He's done pretty fucking well. Cuomo's still the favorite, but like...
No. Yeah, he's surged, right? But the ground that he has to make up in terms of like, I got to take voters from that candidate and that candidate and that candidate. The narrative that I was seeing from the pollsters was like, that just doesn't seem like there's a lot there, because there seems to be quite the ideological divide. But yeah.
The caveat that I'll make is that it's extremely difficult to poll ranked choice voting elections because you're essentially polling like a ultimately distributed outcome. And it's also very difficult to predict what the actual attrition rate is, because with every time you eliminate a candidate, a lot of those voters don't rank subsequent candidates, right? So, you know, you're talking about you could lose like 20, 30% of the base of voters, and that reduced down base. Like, one criticism of ranked choice voting is that not only does it not get rid of strategic voting, it also arguably advantages candidates with a really, really fervent base of people. And that's obviously Mamdani in this election, right? Not Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo is riding purely on name recognition. The guy has literally only just now started to campaign, like last week, for this role. And all the momentum seems to be on Mamdani's side. And AOC and Bernie Sanders, extremely popular amongst New York Democrats. They're probably going to endorse Mamdani, and it's going to be kind of an Obama style, like, you know, 11th hour endorsement. I think that'll help him as well. So I'm not saying Mamdani will win.
A lot of people are pissed that she hasn't done that already. I'm curious.
I can't believe that she will not endorse him. I have to believe that they are timing it strategically.
They're timing it strategically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, before we wrap up, I'm just curious, like, what do you think of the rent freeze that he's proposing? What, as in terms of, like, is that good policy, bad policy?
Well, the rent freeze is yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the rent freeze is already, it's a freeze for already rent controlled units, right? Bill de Blasio did it 3 times when he was mayor. It's not as if it destroyed the city. I think people in general, you know, Yimbys and sort of like left, center left people are like wildly overreacting to every single thing that Zohran proposes. Municipal grocery stores is not that big of a thing, good or bad. Freezing already rent-controlled units is not that big of a deal, good or bad. However, the things that, if you look at his actual housing plan, every single socialist, democratic socialist candidate should have Zohran's exact housing plan. His exact housing plan is, we want to deregulate zoning, we want to make these rules and regulations make sense to incentivize building, and we want to do things like public investment in social housing. And yeah, we want to, you know, do a freeze on the already rent-controlled apartments. You know, that's the way that you should do left-wing housing reform. And that's essentially what his platform is, you know. And again, forget about all that shit. How the fuck could it be that Cuomo becomes a politician again after all the controversy, after having to resign in disgrace? I mean, it just would be a ridiculous outcome for Democratic primary voters in New York to vote for Andrew Cuomo, especially because he has not even fucking campaighed.
Well, wait a minute. You need to hold your smoke and hold your fire for Cuomo, because we still don't know who Pisco is going to endorse at this point. So we got to wait. Yeah, I'm thinking it's 50-50 that it's Cuomo. The one last thing too, just say you guys should watch Monk debates. They do they're like, I guess, based in Canada, and I've seen like multiple debates. Like Jordan Peterson did one years ago against a couple of people, but there was just a new one with Ezra Klein, Ben Rhodes from Pod Save the World, Pod Save America, former Obama National Security Advisor, Kellyanne Conway, and the president of the Federalist Society, Kevin Roberts, about whether the United States is entering a golden age. You should definitely check that out.
M-O-N-K?
M-U-N-K.
Monk debates?
Monk debates. It's definitely worth checking out. Folks, this was a lot of fun. Pisco, I guess next time we see you, you'll be in NYC. You'll be back in the Big Apple.
That's right. Yeah, back in the Big Crapple, and we'll talk then.
Cool. All right, folks. Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody.